afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Jimmy Palumbo Show. That's right, show number 224. And of course, behind the glass, your friend and mine wearing another cowboy hat, Dave Sturcio. What's up, Dave? How we doing?
Oh, it's a good one here at the old household. Thank God we're up right after last week's storm, but that's another story for another day.
Yes,
but we're good over here, man.
Later in the show,
yeah.
Good. It's only 92 degrees, which isn't that bad. Tyson Hogan getting involved, jumping the gun as usual, and of course he almost gets it right, but not on my show. That's because, first of all, you can't. Show number 224. We do the number thing at the top of the show as always. And, of course, you can't say Willie Mays. That's just that's the iconic one, of course. But you can say Felipe Alou. The Alou brothers playing in the major leagues. Felipe Alou. Dave Sturcio's father knows who he is.
I know who Felipe Alou is.
You got right. His last year was like 75.
Is that Moises' father?
Yeah.
Right. So there you go. I got it.
Oh, my God. They're brothers, unless it's the son, Moises.
Oh, shit. All right. Well, then I'm.
Yeah, they all played in like the 60s and 70s. Then you got Robbie.
Moises Alou played in the 90s, man.
Yeah, I know, but the guy I'm talking about, his uncle or his son.
Oh, all right.
I don't know the whole DNA of the family. I don't know. There was at one point where every team had an Alou on the team, so that's how it was.
Started with the Expos, and then it just ran from there.
Of course, we got Robbie Cano and Ricky Henderson, of course. But your friend of mine, Kevin Moss, who was like 17 for 17, and then someone said, just throw him a curve, and he ended his career 17 for 190, and he was gone. You got Tino, of course, on the Yanks. I can't even. And you got Gary Sanchez. He sucked. And then, of course, you got for 2 years, one of my favorite players of all time, Ruben the Boo Boo. Yeah, getting involved here. I always love flawed, fat players with bombs. Then you got the Giants, Otis Anderson with 2 T's. And then for you older Giant fans out there, Tucker Fredrickson, who played for the Giants, but even more funny, he was the announcer on the preseason games that aired the following Sunday at noon after a preseason game. They had a taped version.
Post-production?
Yeah. They had you don't remember this? It was so bad. It had a certain theme song. Dun, 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 dun. It was so bad. But here's the best thing. It was only a 2-hour show, so they edited an NFL preseason game to like 2 hours with Tucker Fredrickson. Oh my God! Someone has to be driving off the road right now on that one.
What about my dear good friend from the 1995 Super Bowl MVP, Larry Brown? 2 interceptions on Neil O'Donnell to the house.
I was going to mention Larry Brown, but I figured you would, so I held off on that. And they got Giants, Terry Jackson. Then, of course, there was some Laker named Kobe Bryant. And then there's Lou Brock, Rick Barry. There's almost too many 24s, to be honest.
24 is a great number, by the way. That's a very popular number.
It is. Well, Willie Mays. Spencer Haywood, Tony Perez on the Reds, who, like 1 year, Tony Perez had 8 hits and 135 RBIs. He's one of those guys. His average was always low, but when he got up,
pond somehow every time.
Yeah, when he got up, somebody scored. Any Reds fan out there laughing at that one. And then, of course, you got your New York Knicks, Bill Bradley, number 24. So that's it, number 24. It's almost too many. I think 25 will be less. I look forward to doing that next week. But, of course, we do the baseball card thing. And this guy's name, just guys like you, Dave, follow Major League Baseball. This is just going to roll off your tongue. Roll off it. Here you go. You're a friend of mine, Mr. Ted Power. Okay, now Ted Power, right? It's funny for me because he played on 8 teams. Right away, that's funny. He played on 8 teams, and he was traded 3 times. When you get traded 3 times, well, I wonder what the record is. I got to go to AI for this. The record for most traded in a major league career. It's got to be.
Oh, well, I'll look that up right now just because I'm actually very curious. But go ahead.
Okay, there you go. So he was 68 and 69, a righty pitcher, primarily relief pitcher. Played from 81 to 93, 12 years in the bigs. Played with the Dodgers, Cincinnati, the Royals, Tigers, Cardinals, Pitt, back to Cincinnati, Cleveland, and Seattle.
I got it.
What's the most everybody's ever been traded?
Jesse Chavez holds the record for most trades in the MLB. I don't know who Jesse Chavez is. I just named. He looks like he was Most traded player in MLB history. He was traded 10 times in an 18-year career.
Oh my God, that's awful. He must have.
I would love to be. I want to be his real estate agent.
Yeah, I know. Another room. He probably lived on the floor with his other. I mean, please. That's wow. 10 times. That's awful.
10 times.
Imagine calling. Listen, you're married. Imagine calling your wife. I don't care if you were making $8 million a year in the major leagues. If you had to call your wife 10 times and go, yeah, honey, we got to move to Detroit. And then like, yeah, honey, we got to move to Miami. Oh, that's really good. And then it's like, honey, they traded me to Cleveland. That's too funny. Anyway, in 84, he pitched for Cincinnati. He pitched in 78 games. That's like Joe Torre territory right there. 9-7 with a 2.82 ERA with 11 saves. He definitely was the guy, the 6th and 7th inning guy. He was much better at a reliever, but he pitched 1,100 innings. I found that to be crazy. He ended up being a pitching coach in the Padres system, but he waited 17 years when he got called up to be a pitching coach with the Reds. And then that's it. He did pitch in the playoffs. He was 5 innings, 2 earned runs. He was traded, like I said, 3 times. By the way, the guys he was traded for, nobody knows who Ted Powers is, and nobody knows who the guys he got traded for. It was like nobody traded for nobody.
And cash considerations after that.
Right, exactly right. And he made $500,000. So back then, that was all right. And he's in the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame. Don't know why he grew up in Oklahoma.
Right next to Patrick Mahomes.
And on the back of his card, what is it? The 91 card here. It just says his first major league debut. Ted Power on the Jimmy Palumbo Show. Getting involved here.
That is probably one of the greatest scenes of any sports movie ever. Is when Ricky Vaughn is doing the commercial and he can't get it right, and then he's doing the deodorant or right guard sports stick, and the producer's like upside down, and he's like upside down.
That's really funny. Very, very funny there for sure. And of course, Patreon, we still we're at 51 here from Shay. It does appear I have some other Patreon members in there, but they look like it's a scam or something. I don't know. Weird numbers.
You're the king of scam. If I had a nickel for every time you sent me a text saying, "What is this? Is this important?"
Yeah. Well, you know what it is? I get these texts that say like, I know the ones that are scam, but then some of them are really good at.
They're very good. That's why they're who they are.
Right, but I just say, is this something we should look into? And of course, you used to get angry at me and curse me out, but
it's always like it's always the same thing. It's always hey, do you want 80,000 organic followers? You're like, should we look into this? God damn it! No,
I know. I'm just always afraid I'm missing out on something. But I got to give a shout out to my buddy Brian Shevlin, my cousin John Henry Palumbo, and my nephew, Bobby Palumbo, who I was hanging out with all weekend here at Patreon. But now since we don't want someone sitting around, we have a very situation here where we have a guest on our show at Shay. And I did a little research on this young fella. And then I realized, you know what? I could talk about his crazy world, but I want him to talk about it. So I met this guy with Artie Lang. I'm going to say I met him in 93, but he's probably got a better memory than me. Ladies and gentlemen, coming to the Jimmy Palumbo Show for the first time, worldwide headlining comedian Sarge. Sarge, good evening, everybody. How we doing?
Oh, boy, there's nothing that makes a guest on a show feel better than 2 idiots yammering about baseball cards in the immediate precursor to introducing you.
Yes.
It's almost like it's almost criminal that I've been allowed to participate in this conversation. You forgot the most important aloo.
Felipe and De Jesus?
No, the one that was traded more times than Jesse Chavez. His name was Tude Alou. he got traded so many times he changed his name to Toodaloo, and he was with Jesse Chavez on the third time that he re-signed with Kansas City. So there you go.
Well,
Toodaloo.
listen,
where can we find you next, Sarge, with jokes like that? That seems like a dad joke extraordinaire.
Now, first of all, wait a minute. Sarge and I, we go way back, but it's not like we talk every week. As a matter of fact, we go long gaps without talking to each other. But I got to ask you, since my memory is shitty, maybe yours is better. Did I meet you in '93, the Toyota Comedy Festival? Was that what it was?
93, yeah, it was 93. That was a very good call by you. I'm surprised there is no like Topps card commemorating us standing outside of Al Martin's club on the east side.
Well, the reason why I swear what I'm about to say might insult you, but I don't care. You're on my show.
I don't care.
The reason why I became to love Sarge was because I was hanging out with Artie Lang, and now everybody knows Artie and I always did Marv Albert sports announcer, so we ended up hanging out with Sarge. This is, again, years ago. And well, Sarge started to do Marv Albert, okay? But not only did he do Marv Albert, he did in front of us Marv Albert announcing a game between the Osmonds and the Jacksons, okay? And all I remember, and I'm going to blow the joke, I don't care, rebound by LaToya. And me and Artie, like, Artie and I fell into the street, and then he started doing Marv Albert doing shitty Jet games, and all I remember is Johnny Hector, and then he said he did a boxing. By the way, this all happened in 45 seconds. And so Artie and I, who thought we did a good Marv, and then he kicked into with a boxing one, and all we heard, and Artie repeated this the entire ride home, Scipion with a sparkling exchange, glazing the head. So Artie and I, we roared. We just met you. We're like, that guy's Sarge. But to this day, I think Marv Albert doing a game between the Osmonds and is by far the funniest thing. Now, tell me about your whole Marv Albert thing. I mean, there's a whole story there, I know.
Well, it was the only thing that I had when I started comedy. I had the
more than enough for me.
The original Marv Albert impression, doing a game between the Bulls that won 6 championships and the Jackson 5. That's how it started. And it was, and I would do this whole thing, and Jermaine over to Michael. Michael in the corner now looks up at the clock. 31 seconds remaining. Janet in the corner to LaToya, and stolen by Scottie Pippen, looking like a zucchini with eyebrows. So I was just making it up, but it's all I had, and then I added to it this component of what Marv sounded like he was on the toilet, and that he was, constipated, and he was constipated, and he was pulling toilet paper out. Well, anyway, I was getting it was the only material I had, and I was getting constant criticism that it was a scatological bit, and nobody's going to book you talking about being on the toilet. And I go, but it's Marv. Don't you understand? It's Marv. And then I worked in an old Mike Tyson having an interview with Marv, and the Ludacris, I'm gonna come there, I'm gonna rip your fucking head off, and then I'm gonna shit in your neck, and anyway, everything was about shit, everything was about the toilet, everything was about, so I was constantly criticized, and make a long story short,
you had me and Artie crying. The other thing is, you started out obviously. Now I gotta. I guess to me, looking at your bio and stuff, I didn't realize how. I know you've been sober now for 30 years, I guess. 34 years. 34 years, awesome.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize, number one, how really bad it was. You weren't just having Chardonnays at a cocktail party.
Oh no,
you were actually on drugs, and you were actually homeless at one point.
Yeah. Before you met me, yeah. You'll enjoy this. You'll enjoy this, and this is a great sports story, so it'll fit right in. Sturcio, you can go grab a sandwich if you want at this point.
Take care, guys.
No, stay on.
No, stay, because Jimmy might lose his feed, and then you're gonna have to.
Listen,
just use you as a feed placeholder.
I may have Johnny Hector on the show next week.
No. I had a storied career using angel dust and crack cocaine while working producing live broadcast sports television
on Angel Dust.
On Angel Dust. So I'll give you just one scenario, which ultimately
that's the secret. All right.
This ultimately led
hey,
to
Dave,
my.
I got some great ideas for next week's show.
Yeah.
This particular situation led to my demise at CBS Sports, and I'll name names. I will give you names. So it's Mother's Day, and the Bulls are. I think it's 1996. Bulls, Sixers, Spectrum, Mother's Day. I'm working in the studio in New York on 9th Avenue and 57th Street on Pat O'Brien, the Prudential at the half with Pat O'Brien and Bill Raftery. Da 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 da. Okay, so I'm there, and they have Mrs. Worthy, Mrs. Isaiah Thomas, all the mothers, Mrs. Lane Beer. They have Michael. They have Michael Jordan's mother in the studio.
I'm sure his father wasn't there, even with her.
His father was there, and at the conclusion of the segment, the producer said to me, "I want you to take the Jordans to Philadelphia." And we've got
that's something you don't hear every day.
Yeah, that wasn't on your bingo card.
He says, "I want you to get footage of Michael with his mother on Mother's Day at the Spectrum post game, and I want you to bring the tape back for the Bob Schieffer Evening News tonight."
Oh my God!
For the CBS Evening News with Bob Schieffer. So I take the Jordans. The second the segment's over, I've got the caddy ready to go. The Sedan DeVille is on 9th Avenue. I grab the Jordans. I'm supposed to take them to the Spectrum, seat them, get them something to eat, pick them up at the conclusion of the game, rush them down below to the locker room to get footage with Michael and his mother, and then take the Jordans to Philadelphia Airport to fly back to Greensboro. That's my assignment. Okay. So I leave.
We're with you.
I'm on beta track.
I leave the studio in New York. I jet to in the Sedan DeVille. I'm going 105 miles per hour in the Sedan DeVille down the Jersey Turnpike, and I don't care if I get pulled over because I got Michael Jordan's mother here. So if I can't, nothing can happen to me. I am on, So we get to the Spectrum. It's raining. Like biblical rain, like it's raining sideways. And I pull up. If you remember the old Spectrum, it had a very large plaza around it, kind of like Nassau Coliseum. You couldn't just park and walk in. You had to park and then walk across this plaza. Well, anyhow, I drive up the stairs and up the plaza because I got Michael Jordan's mother and father with me in the car. So now I get to the executive office doors of the Spectrum, and there's two gentlemen there, security gentlemen. And I just so happen to have CBS Sports hats with me because if you work for CBS Sports and you're an associate producer, you always have those hats. The navy blue hat with the CBS Sports patch. Right. Those you can walk into the White House with those. Okay. As long as you have a couple of hats. So I get out of the car in the teeming rain and I say to the guy, "You got any kids?" And he goes, yeah, I got 2 kids. I said, "Yeah, okay." I said, "Who's this guy?" He goes, "Oh, that's Rod." I said, "Oh, hey, Rod, what's up?" And I come out with 4 hats and I hand him the hats. And he goes, "Oh, thank you, man." And he's got an umbrella. I said, "Listen, I need you to do me a favor." I said, "I have Michael Jordan's mom and dad in the back here. Can you take them inside?" He says, "Absolutely." And this was all the hats. And so they went out. I opened the door and the Jordans go in. I follow. I seat them. And then I leave to go back outside to put the car away. And I come out and I remember that in my little pouch is a joint of angel dust. So I smoked the dust and then went back into the Spectrum. They gave me a credential, which hangs around your neck, all access at a NBA game. So now I have the all access, and I'm high on angel dust. And I walk into the Spectrum, and it's like fourth quarter, and it's rocking. I mean, the place is boom, boom, tsh, boom, boom. Tsh. The whole place is packed, and I'm looking for a place to sit, and I can't find anywhere. And I'm looking around, and I'm high, like I'm literally on the nose cone of the Goodyear blimp, like just floating around. So I'm looking everywhere and I don't see any seats. And I look to my right and over there, I see a folding seat, like courtside. So I go right for it. Excuse me. I stepped on about 11,000 people, pardon me, because I'm high and I'm on press row and I'm bumping into things. And I finally get to this seat and I throw down the seat and I sit down and I put my elbows on my knees and I'm at courtside, and the squeaking of the sneakers and your baseline jumper and da 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 da, and I see a set of headphones on the floor from production, and I got an all access pass, so I put the headphones on, and you hear Dick Stockton on the overhead thing saying, and as you take a look down the Sixers bench, you see Jimmy Lynam's big man, Rick Mahorn, with his foot in a bucket of ice. Boy, wouldn't he love to get him back into the action. That's what you hear on the broadcast feed. In the other side of the headset, I hear the producer go, is that fucking Sarge? What the fuck is Sarge doing on the Sixers bench? So when he said, what the fuck is Sarge doing on the Sixers bench, I looked around, and it was the first time I realized the only open seat in the Spectrum was at the end of the Sixers bench, and I sat down. So I'm in the same camera shot with Rick Mahorn icing his foot.
That's great.
So now the director goes from directing the game action to going, camera 12, stay on the bench, stay on fucking Sarge. And now the producer, this guy, Mansbach, he gets on the headset. He goes, what the fuck are you doing in Philadelphia? You're not even supposed to be here. You're not even on this team. Why are you at courtside? Why are you with the Sixers? I said, I can only answer one question at a time. He goes, you're fired. Get out of the building. Get out of the Spectrum. He fired me out of the Spectrum. So I took the headsets off, and I slinked over to a side area where I knew I was out of camera range. I still collected the Jordans after the game. I still went down to the locker room and got my B-roll of Michael with his mother. I still delivered them to Greensboro Airport high on angel dust. I still got my tape back to CBS Sports in New York, and they gave it to Bob Schieffer for the CBS Evening News. And Monday, I just went to work like nothing happened.
And nobody said anything?
It was like the Larry David story when he yelled at Lorne Michaels, and he's still, okay. So now that was in May or June. Cut to September or late August. I'm walking across Flushing Meadow at the U.S. Open Tennis Championships. And as I'm walking, coming towards me is the guy that fired me out of the Spectrum. He's carrying a briefcase, and we pass each other, kind of like those sheepdogs on the Bugs Bunny cartoon. Hey, Ralph. Hey, Bob. Remember? And as I get past him and I keep walking, I'm saying, please don't say anything. Please don't say anything. The guy turns around and he goes, Sarge? I go, yeah. He goes, why are you here? I said, well, I'm working. He goes, working for who? USA Network? Are you working for one of the news channels? I said, no, I'm working for you. Are you working for me? I fired you 4 months ago. I said, I know, but I didn't leave. He said, you didn't leave. I said, no, I just kept. He goes, you just kept coming to work. I said, yeah, I just went in on Monday and no one said anything, so I just stayed at work. I need the job. So he said to me, all right, here's the deal. I can't deal with this right now. Stay off the courts. Stay away from the tennis players. He says, I will deal with this later. He says, what is your job on this coverage? I said, I'm running one of the replay machines in your production effort. He said, replays. He goes, all right, that's it. I get here at 9 a.m. You get here at 8 a.m. You go directly to the truck. You go in the corner and you stay by your machine. If you have to take a dump, you do it in a trash can. If you have to take a piss, you do it in a trash can. I leave here at 6. You don't leave here till 7. We will have your food brought in. I don't want to see you one more time during this tennis championship.
Who is this now?
A guy named Bob Mansbach, who was one of the lead producers at CBS Sports. I wouldn't get fired until roughly week 4 of the NFL season, which is an even longer story, which we won't tell here today. But ultimately, when I got fired from during the NFL season, I lost everything. I lost my place to live. I lost my income. I began to ramp up my participation in the consumption of harmful narcotics, and I ended up homeless. And I was on the streets of New York for roughly 9 more months after that. And
so just living like completely homeless, nowhere to go.
Nowhere to go. Well, I wasn't. I was home. I went to friends' places because I still had clothes that didn't look like I was homeless, and I was fat, so people didn't believe. Like even drug dealers. I was smoking crack back in the height of the crack epidemic.
He's fat. He's eating good.
I had to bring an emaciated, toothless guy with me to vouch for me to buy drugs. So now, the interesting thing was I still had my CBS ID, which means I was still entitled to go to the 22nd floor and go to the cash advance window and get cash. Because in those days, CBS had baseball, basketball, football, hockey. They had everything, Olympic units, golf, auto racing, boxing, you name it. And so I had an unlimited expense account as it was attached to all these various sports coverages, and I used a lot of that money for staying high, and ultimately that kept me going for a while. But I never used the money for rent or for a furnished room. Something about the drugs that I was using, angel dust and crack cocaine together.
So what? Obviously, what inspired you to get sober? What
Well, I wasn't inspired to get sober. I had a really dear friend who I used to be roommates with, who was he worked at Macy's, and a great guy. And at the time, he was the head buyer at Macy's for women's dresses. Straight guy, the only straight guy in the dress department. Anyway, I asked him if I could stay in his place while he said, I ran into him on the street. He said he was going skiing for Christmas vacation for the month of December. I said, can I use your place? He goes, sure. I'll leave you the key. So he left me the key to the apartment that I used to live in with him before I became homeless. And I robbed all of his personal valuables. I took watches, gold chains, family heirlooms, his mother's earrings, bracelets, everything. I robbed the place. And to make a long story short, he came back from his Christmas holiday to find that all this stuff was missing. He knew that I had been staying there. He came and he met up with me somewhere in the city, down in the village, because I was down by the Manhattan Bridge over by Houston, where I could get my crack. But anyway, he asked me where the stuff was, and I told him that I had taken it all and robbed it and sold it on 47th Street and 6th Avenue in that the jewelry district. And he says, let's get you some help. And he didn't say, I'm calling the cops. He didn't say I'm pressing charges. He said, let's get you some help. And 24 hours later, I was on the steps of a rehab center in Delray Beach, Florida. Wow. A gentleman met me at the door. He said, are you an alcoholic? Oh, and you're going to love this. You guys are going to love this. So I was still in the height of my using on my way to rehab, obviously. And I flew down. I don't know what airline it was. But I was about 355 at that time, and I told the flight attendant on the plane that I had just gotten cut by the Jets. He said, how you doing? I said, oh, it's a bad week. And he goes, what happened? I go, I just got cut by the Jets. And he goes, oh, I'm a Jet fan. I go, what number? I'm number 66. Maybe you know me. So the guy said, oh, and that's okay. And he kept coming by. And every time he came by with the card, he gave me another bottle of vodka and another bottle of vodka. So now I was 10 sheets to the wind. I got to the treatment center, and the guy that met me at the door said, he says, wow, you really stink. How many drinks? Are you an alcoholic? He said, are you an alcoholic? And I said, no, I'm a crackhead. I smoke crack. And he looked at my body. I was like 355. He goes, you're a crackhead. He goes, I don't even get that at all. He says, I'm looking at you. And I said, well, it's very high calorie crack. I said, it's, and so he said, are you an alcoholic? I said, no. He said, how many drinks did you have on your way here? I said, 11. He says, well, it's a good thing. He said, it's a good thing you're not an alcoholic. I said, why is that? He said, because an alcoholic would have had 12 drinks. He said, you're one, in Jimmy Palumbo parlance, he said, you're one drink shy of the alcoholic. And now Sarge is over the limit.
Over here with 6 personal fouls, and Sarge wants to talk it over.
I was going to ask you. You said you got fired week 4 of the NFL. I was going to ask you if you wound up in the huddle or some shit.
No. I was in the Interlink in the broadcast center. So my job was Green Bay, San Francisco. That was it was Chicago. Chicago, Green Bay was my game. And what I'm supposed to do is I'm supposed to be in a cubicle with a headset and communicate with the broadcast team and the production team in Chicago to be the liaison between the brass in New York that are all sitting watching in a room with a vast spread of lovely food, and 25 TVs. So the brass is all watching, and you're in the control room.
Yeah.
And I have a headset on. So now I get a special, the executive producer of the network says, Chicago hasn't done a reset yet. A reset is when they say, you're looking live at Soldier Field in Chicago, where the Bears have just taken a convincing 28-12 lead over the Green Bay Packers. Hello, everybody. I'm Jimmy Palumbo, along with Dave Sturchio on the sidelines. And you're supposed to do a reset.
Yeah.
So the executives are yelling at me, Chicago hasn't done a fucking reset. Get them to do a reset. So I say over the headphones, very calmly, Joe, one of the top directors with the entire network, because you remember CBS used to have it, just the NFC package at that time. And this guy was an Olympic director, an award-winning director, this guy named Joe Assetti. I said, Joe, they need a reset, Soldier Field, blah, blah, blah. I don't do fucking resets. Tell them to shove it up their ass. So I'm on the other side of the wall from all the bosses. So I said, just a moment. So now the guy says, Sarge, they need to do a reset in Chicago. So I said, Joe, they need a reset over here. Do you understand? Please, Joe, I need a reset. And I hear, they pulled the plug on the interlink. They've basically technologically hung up on me, my career, my life, and that particular connection.
Amazing.
And so,
I just researched that game. You were on the sidelines with Rick Mahorn. You actually had 6 points in that game. I don't know if you've ever gone to basketball reference. And you had 2 rebounds, but you had 4 fouls.
Sarge, step minutes. Back.
Let's take a 1-point lead.
And Dean the Dream Damager checks in and Johnny Newman with a running one-hander.
Johnny Newman. Jay New, my favorite ex-Nick. So now you go to this place, you get sober.
Yes.
And then did you go right to comedy? What did you do right after?
Well, the miracle of it was that this gentleman that met me at the door that did all this silly conversation with me as I arrived invited me to go in the other room and pray for my ass, basically. He said, go in the other room and ask God to remove the obsession to drink and drug from your life. So I went in the other room. He says, and also hit your knees. So I went in the other room and I was hitting my knees with my hands. I'm sitting there on a chair, hitting my knees. He meant kneel. I didn't even realize. I'm hitting my knees with the palms of my hands and I'm going, please help me remove the obsession to drink and drugs from my life, God. Please, please, please. So now I come out of there. He said, did you do it? I said, yeah. And he says, come on, let's go. I'll put you in your room. He goes, what's your race anyway? Because he couldn't tell what I was. Because as you can see, I'm kind of pink and beige and well, I'm not all the way black. It's like my birth father pulled out. So anyway.
So what is your nationality? What are you?
It's like Bosco when you don't stir it up all the way. Do you remember Bosco?
Yes. What is your? I love Bosco.
My birth mother was an Orthodox Jewish woman. She stooped a black guy. He pulled out. And I was a mixed race baby in the early 60s. And the funny thing about that was she was white from Chicago, gave me up for adoption. My parents were desperate for a baby. So they adopted me and they didn't know they were getting a mixed race child. Now, today that would be like, oh, they're so exotic. Oh, they're the best kind of babies. They're mutts. Mutts don't get cancer. So anyway, so wait. So I'm going to school and all the black kids are telling me that I'm black and I don't believe it, right? So I come home and I said to my mother, I'll never forget this, because I needed to make my mother stop waiting for the bus with me because the other kids would see my mother and they go, she's not your mother. What are you, out of your fucking mind? Like, I didn't even know I was adopted. So
now your adopted parents were white?
My adopted parents were white. So I came home and I said, everyone says I'm black. And I was crying. And my mother says, don't be ridiculous. Do you think we would have adopted you if we knew you were half black? Like,
oh my God.
Which led to camp. When I went to camp, my parents sent me.
Which led to camp?
My parents sent me we don't care packages. We don't care. I got we don't care packages. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Oh my God.
You went to the half black camp? They had one of those back then?
No, I was in the Fresh Air Fund where they would they would pick you up in a checker cab and drop you off in downtown Monticello.
So you were definitely a Con Edison kid in front row.
That's right.
That's only funny to seven people.
But you asked me where it started, so I prayed that one night. I woke up the next day, and that was December 26, 1990. I never drank or took another drug, another pill, a hit of anything since that day. And so that's the miracle of that, because I'm a one and done guy. I got sober, I stopped once, and I've stayed stopped for the last 34 years. Now, a few days later, they send you to the beach because this treatment center was right on the beach. And the guy who met me at the front door, who ironically I had breakfast with today, gentleman, has been my sponsor for 100 years. But the guy says, go to the beach and I want you to think about what you want to do with the rest of your life. Sit apart from the other people, find your own little space and meditate and just be quiet. Being meditative means being quiet and listening to the universe. This is what they told you. So I went to the beach and I thought, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And I don't know why, but I thought of a time when my grandfather took me to see Don Rickles at Grossinger's, which was a Catskills resort hotel that had, nightly A-list entertainment from the Ed Sullivan Show. If we could go back if you'd like, we can go back to Kinescopes and we can talk about, Arthur Godfrey.
Listen, we've talked about Bing Crosby on the show, so I have no problem.
All right. Or how about Rudy Valley? So I had this vision in my mind of a time when I was 6, when my grandfather had me sitting under the table next to his legs watching Rickles on stage. I was watching past the edge of the table underneath because kids weren't allowed at the show. But my grandfather was a bigwig at RKO, Radio Pictures, another black and white reference from early radio. So he was able to bring his grandkid in and he had me by his feet and I'm watching Rickles. And I remember thinking, I don't know what that guy's talking about, but I want to do what he's doing, because I looked the other way at the audience and there were 2,000 people draped over each other, screaming and crying with laughter. So I remember thinking, I don't know what that guy's talking about in the tuxedo, but these people just love him. And so I had that vision at the beach. And when we came back, they asked us what we thought about during our meditation. And I said, I've always wanted to be a comedian. And he said, terrific. That's great. Yeah, get on with it.
So you started your comedy out of Florida.
I started by going to an open mic night over in Boca. I had to get special permission because after I got out of treatment, I lived in a halfway house, and I was the guy who brought the carts in from the lot at Home Depot.
So you were half black, and they only gave you a half house.
That's right.
That's tough.
I had to sleep with one leg out the window.
So you went to an open mic, and how did it go? How much time?
The funny thing was, it was an open mic on Tuesday nights, and it was over at around 10:30. But you had to be back at the halfway house by 10. I had to get special permission, and a guy with 10 years plus sobriety had to take me there because alcohol was served there. So he came with me. The funny thing about it was, you would go on stage and do 10 minutes. And then they'd hold hands over the various people, and they would get the audience response. And then, if you were the best, you would get you would get $50 in drink coupons at Haggerty's.
Oh my God!
So anyhow, I won 11 consecutive weeks.
Oh, wow.
And Jimmy Schubert was there, and a guy named Dave. They were all there stealing jokes from new comedians, and they were sitting in the back, having a drink, watching the open mic night, and then they would go on after these guys. And it was Dave Heenan and Jimmy Schubert. I'll never forget this. I won 11 straight weeks, and I said, wow, this Marv Albert thing is killing. But ironically, I haven't had the most storied career as a comedian, but I've had a spectacular run. I'm 64 years old. I've been doing this since really the official time I started was February 1st, 1992.
I tell Dave all the time, like when you start out in showbiz, I mean, at least for me, you think you don't know what you're doing, and then you start to dabble, and all of a sudden you get a little smell of it. You smell the end zone a little bit, and then you start thinking like, hey, maybe I can be a star, or not so much a star, that's the wrong word, or maybe I can make like big money at this and I'll be famous is really what it is. And then as you get punched in the face, you get to a certain point where you're like, hey, you know what? If I can just do this and earn enough money to pay my bills and live a decent life, that is success. But sadly, many guys do that, and yet they're still bummed out that they didn't become Jerry Seinfeld, or they didn't become George Clooney, or whatever, Brad
or Jimmy
Pitt,
Palumbo,
or Jimmy Palumbo here at Shea. But I find that sad, and I fought those demons too. But sometimes I'm like, hey, you know what? I know the greatest career. I'm still here. I still have at bats. Like I'm on those Tuesday night shitty games. The Tigers at the Blue Jays getting a base hit to right. But if you don't hit the home run, you think you're not successful. And I think comedians, it's like you do cruise ships, I know, and people are like, I'm only doing cruise ships. I'm like, only doing cruise ships? There's big fucking money on those damn trips,
Yeah, who makes $4,000 a week doing anything? I mean,
I know, yeah. And there's a lot of guys though. They're bummed that they don't have their own show on CBS, and it took me really only in the last 10 or 12 years have I come to that conclusion of, hey, you know what?
Well, Jimmy, there's a couple of things that happen that are spectacular in terms of your maturity. First of all, you realize that in 25 years, it doesn't matter what the fuck you did.
Right. Yep.
25 years from right now, it doesn't matter whether you were Seinfeld or you were achtoches, like mucus on the side of the street. Right. It wouldn't make any difference. It does. All your stuff will be gone. A few people who adored you will remember you fondly. There'll be a couple of episodes of this crap floating around out there. And at the end of the day, so that's first thing that hits you. But the second thing that hits you is you start to realize, wait a second. I'm in my own way here. I mean, the only way I'm going to be happy with this is if I'm more successful than him or him or him or him. You hear it all the time. I got to play this great game. I got to wear the uniform. I got to perform on stage at Radio City. I got to perform at the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. I got to perform at every major venue in the country. I opened for Anka for a year and a half. I toured the world with Donna Summer. I was with the Beach Boys. I was with the Four Tops. Now they're all dead. I opened for Taylor Dane. I was with Kansas. I was a top opening act. I just made a mistake in my career back then because I had managers that told me that the chasm, the gap between opening act and huge stardom is you've got to get a TV show. So we got to get you out of that agency that sees you as an opening act and get you someplace that sees you as a TV star. And so I left one of the greatest entertainment agencies in the world to go to another one that was one of the greatest in the world. And my career went there to die. Like they didn't even know I was a client there.
Right. I had the same thing when I started doing this podcast. I was like, you know what? My career's not going well. Let me kill it. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Jimmy Palumbo Show with your friend and mine. No, I understand what you're saying. I made a similar mistake with. I was with an agent for 33 years. I'll say his name. I don't care. Peter Principato, and he became Principato and Young, and then he became Artist First, and I had his first assistant was my manager. And in the end, I got like totally ghosted. And all they had to do was say, hey, Jimmy, you're batting 195. We're moving on. I would have been like, fine. Can you help me out? Get me another agent. Instead, they ghosted me, which is such a douche move. And I realized I should have left. Just like you should have stayed, I should have left.
You know why, though? You know why they moved on from you, Jimmy? Because I had 3 clients that had written pilots for TV shows that got picked up. And suddenly, Principato Young was a showrunner rather than an agent. And suddenly, the things that they were dedicated to you early in your career when they were working with you, individually you, was no longer the moneymaker anymore. They're getting 10% of your,
Yeah, I'm not in the comedy realm. I'm in the, the professional wrestling realm of things. And that's what happened. Same thing, man. Like you have this trainer who is all about you because you're making him money, and he's promoting you and saying like, hey man, we'll give you this match and this match and this match. And you're like, wow, man, this is really fucking cool. But then as soon as he got ahead and he found a couple new, shiny new toys, he didn't know my name anymore. And I was like, well, what about all the money I made you for the first 10 years? You know what I mean? They're like, no, you're on your own now. And and then on top of that, I'm like, you know what? The hell with this. I'll just start my own thing. Right. And you start your own thing. And I haven't heard one word from this guy. Not once. Not congratulations on creating your own path. None of that. Zero. And I'm like, oh, interesting. So I can relate.
Well, it comes down to something very interesting. The ethics of the business have changed and people's ethos has changed. It used to be that they woke up every morning thinking, how can I make money for Jimmy Palumbo today? Because I found Jimmy Palumbo, I signed him, and I have to make him happen in order to be right about Jimmy Palumbo. Right. So, but it suddenly becomes waking up in the morning trying to think of what do I have to do to be successful myself? What do I have to do for me in order for me to be more successful? And I handle my own business today. But here's
which isn't a bad thing if you think about it. Like if I woke up tomorrow and said, you know what, like I've been helping all these people for all this time, like, but somewhere along the line I forgot about myself. That's not a terrible mindset. It's just how you handle that.
But
mindset.
As an artist, a lot of people have a fear of talking about money and talking about details. A lot of people feel like they need that person to handle them. I don't need handling. I know what I want. I know what I want to do, and my manager is God. If he wakes me up tomorrow, that means I've got another day to go book a bunch of dates. And if he doesn't wake me up, it means it's over. You know what I mean? I don't need some fat guy in an office to not take my calls. And he just stepped away. Oh, he's in a meeting right now. He's on a conference call. Can he call you back later? Can he call you back tomorrow? He's out of town. He's over here. He's over there. He's stepped away again. He's stepping away from stepping away. It's like, you know what? At some point, I'll tell you the best story. Listen to this. So a big comedian, a big guy gets the job to be the sidekick to Magic Johnson on that piece of shit talk show they did. You remember that? The Magic Hour. Mm-hmm. So I won't say the guy's name because he's still business and he's a good guy and everything, but he can't do this gig in Bermuda. So he tells me, listen, cover this golf tournament. It's a Samuel L. Jackson golf tournament in Bermuda. So I said, okay. He goes, they'll fly you from LA. You're doing the gig with Jim Brewer. I said, great. So I took the gig and I'm covering for my buddy. My buddy's sidekicking on a TV show. Terrific. So now I go to Bermuda. I do the gig. I go backstage. It's an outdoor concert, 2,000 people, and there must be 600 celebrities there. Every friend of Samuel L. Jackson. And I'm talking Michael Douglas. I'm talking Samuel L. I'm talking big people are there, right? As a matter of fact, Jimmy's going to love this. I'm on the plane. And it's all people being thrown from LA to Bermuda on a UPS plane that they put chairs in. They put seats in the UPS plane, and it's a charter, and we're going to Bermuda. And I'm the only person sitting by himself. Everybody else are celebrities, and they all know each other. I'm the only guy sitting in a row by himself, looking out the window, trying to get smaller and smaller. So now I'm sitting there, and the flight takes off, and we're about 15 minutes in. And this gentleman comes over to my row, and he taps me on the shoulder, and he says, hey. He says, I don't mean to interrupt. I hope you're not deeply in thought. I said, no, I'm not. How you doing? Nice to meet you. And I shook his hand. And it's Dustin Hoffman. So I said, hi. I said, how you doing? He says, pretty good. He says, hey, listen. He says, I might not have another chance. He says, my kids love you. They know all your routines. They think you're terrific. It would mean a lot to me if you could sign something to one of my sons. He's a big fan of yours. I said, okay. He says, oh, Sinbad, thank you so much. And I said, fucking Sinbad.
Shazam.
So I'm thinking in my mind,
holy shit.
I should sign it still bad. So I sign it Sinbad. So
oh my God.
So he goes back and he goes and sits down. So now I go to the gig and everyone's there, right? And Brewer comes backstage carrying 2 drinks. They have these things in Bermuda called Dark and Stormies. It's like rum mixed with their local dark beer. He's obviously been drinking them since the golf course this morning. It's now 8:00 at night. So his eyes are wet. Do you know that kind of drunk?
Yeah, I know.
His eyes are wet. His eyes and his mouth are wet. He's wet. He's literally wet in every hole. And he says, to me, how much time can you do? This was at the very beginning of my career. I said, I can do an hour, a little bit more than an hour. He goes, good. I'll go out and say hello, and you do the rest of the show. I said, okay. So he goes out, he says hello, he does some finger puppets on the piano with his fingers, and then he goes back and passes out backstage. I go out and demolish. I mean, I had a great night. So much so that afterwards there's an after party and everyone's coming over to me saying, have you spoken to this person? Have you spoken to Tony Howard? Did Tony Howard speak to you? Oh my God. Michael Douglas comes over and he says, hey, Tony Howard loves you. Oh my God, you're going to be a huge star. You're amazing. Oh my, Tony Howard. Denzel comes over. My wife, I haven't seen her laugh like that in years, dude. Man, nigga, you funny, man. You a funny motherfucker. Thank you so much. So anyway, all the celebrities telling me how great I am. Tony Howard. So now I'm over by the bar getting a Diet Coke, and this person comes over and taps me on the shoulder, and it's a little woman about 4 feet tall, and she extends her hand. She goes, hi, I'm Tony Howard. And I'm thinking I'm going to meet this guy, this massive mega agent. It's a miniature person like Zelda from Poltergeist. Like,
she's the Muggsy Bogues of agents.
Carol Ann.
Yes, she says, you're unbelievable. She goes, where do people like you come from? I have never seen, you are going to be such a gigantic star. What agency are you with? I said, well, we're going to embarrass them. I want to sign you right now. I said, sign me to what? And she goes on the bar and she takes a beverage napkin. She looks for a pen. She goes, I want you to sign this. I have to sign you. Everybody loves you. You are the toast of the town. We have never left. So my husband hates comedians and he was in stitches. He had an angina attack at the show. Blah, 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 blah. You're going to be a big star. So I said, well, where am I signing? What am I signing to? Do you have an agency? She looks at her friend. She goes, he doesn't know who I am. He doesn't realize it. It's so cute. I run. And then she said the name of her agency. And I said, I don't know how to tell you this, but I'm already with your agency.
Oh my God.
She said, that's preposterous. How is that possible? I said, well, just like you guys are really good at, making people famous, you're also good at keeping it real quiet. Right. I said, because I haven't been anywhere since I signed with your outfit. And she goes, well, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. When we get back to LA, I want you to call me Monday morning. So we got back to LA and I called her Monday. She stepped away. She must be on another call. She stepped away again. She stepped away right after she stepped away. The whole stepped away thing. Yeah. So finally, I'm walking down Robertson in Beverly Hills, going to a coffee shop at about, 8 in the morning. I came from an AA meeting. I'm going to have breakfast. And this Mercedes comes flying down Robertson and screeches to a halt and then backs up. And it's her. How come you didn't call me? I said, I called you. You stepped away. Then you stepped away from stepping away. And then you must have stepped away. And they were afraid you stepped away. And then they're happy that you stepped away. So she says, I want you in my office at 11 o'clock. So I went to her office and she told me that the people who were charged with my representation told her that I was very difficult to handle. And I'm late quite often. And I'm very unprofessional. And so they had a hard time getting behind me entirely.
Is that true?
I hadn't seen any of them since they signed me. They hadn't sent me anywhere. They covered their ass. It was a CYA. But, listen, and this is my life we're talking about, your life, Sergio's life. We've all been through this where people have, promised to do something or promised to handle us and then lost interest or got distracted or did something else, or they got a bigger hit out of another guy because that's really the only reason they're doing it. And, so to make a long story short, it comes back to, I had a mentor in 2007. I did a show in Los Angeles and a gentleman named Gary Marshall was the MC of the show. And I only did the show. I flew from Florida to LA just to meet Gary Marshall because he was my idol. I loved him. Especially in Lost in America, in that Albert Brooks movie when he was the casino guy. So I do the show, and I wanted to meet Gary, and I killed. And the show was Ben Vereen, it was Marilyn McCoo and Billy Davis Jr. It was like a retro show.
Marilyn McCoo Day here at the stadium, all fans 18 and over.
And now to sing the national anthem, Lola Falana.
Checking in at the 8:14 mark, Roberta Flack is.
Multi-Grammy Award winner Gloria Gaynor will sing I Will Survive. So now I do the show and I come off and I got a standing ovation. I couldn't believe it. and this was a star-studded show. I closed it, and I'm looking for Gary Marshall, and he's gone. So I said to one of the people, I go, "Where's Gary Marshall?" They said, "Oh, he loved you. He had to pee, so he left." So I said, I flew to LA to meet Gary Marshall. So anyway, someone told him about that, and a couple of days later, I got back to Florida. The phone rings, and this voice comes on the phone and says, "What are you so happy about?" So I said, "Happy? Who is this? Who is this? Who answers a phone? Who is this?" I said, "Well, I answer a phone. Who is this? I don't know who this is. Why are you so happy?" I saw you on stage and you just seem so happy. And the only reason I can tell when someone's happy is because I'm a happy person, and I can spot a happy person because I've never seen a happy comic. They're all miserable, depraved, drug addicted, depressed, self-inflicted wounds, suicidal. Comedians are the sickest people. You're such a happy comic. Why are you so happy? So I once again I said, "Who is this?" I sounded like, "Who is this?" So he finally says, "It's Gary Marshall, you fucking moron." So I said, "Oh my God." He says, "Let me tell you something. We're going to work on this as we become better friends over the years." He says, "There's funny people that say things, and there's people that say funny things." He says, "You're one of the funny people that says things. You're like me and Mel." I said, "Mel who? Melot?" He said, "Very good. No, Mel Brooks, you fucking idiot."
Wow.
He says, "You're one of the funny people that says things." He says, "I want you to come here." So I said, "Come where?" "I was just there. You had to pee, and then you left." He says, "Well, I want you to come. When can you come?" So I said, "When can I come?" I'll come Thursday." He says, "All right." He says, "It's settled then. You'll come Thursday." And then he thought for a second, and he says, "You know what?" He says, "Don't come." I said, "Wait, you just invited me. Now I'm not coming?" He says, "No." He says, "You're still going to come." He says, "But I'm going to bring you, which means you don't have to come. If I bring you, then you don't have to pay." He says, "If I bring you, I'll pay. I'll pay for you to come, so now you don't have to come." So I said,
Oh, my mind's fucking blown right now. Again.
this was the conversation. So I said, "All right, I'll be there." He says, "So you're coming?" I said, "Yes, but you're bringing me. I'll be brought. Being brought is different than coming." Now, that's the point right there. Right in that conversation. It wasn't scripted. It wasn't written. It wasn't pre-deliberated. We didn't talk it over first. He had the ability to just be funny, which is different than saying the same lines for 30 years or the same jokes or knowing where you're going with everything. I didn't know where this was going yet. It was brilliant. Right. In the moment, magnificent comedy conversation with a beautiful. So I ended up going there, and he taught me to stop writing and to start being, because his essence of me was, "You're better than your jokes. You're better than anything you can think of." He says, "And I don't know how successful you'll be in business terms." He says, "But the best thing you have to share an audience after I saw you is share yourself with people. Don't worry about the cleverness and the brilliance and outthinking people. Just share your life with audiences." He says, "And you'll always be beloved." That's what he said. And this is coming from one of the most beloved people in the history of show business. And I took that advice, and that's why I don't care that I did a cruise ship, and I don't care that.
And that's why, though, in November,
guess what happened?
The Hamptons. Sarge,
guess
Jimmy
Palumbo, we moved it up. You're going to be with me sooner than that, hopefully, because I've got a bunch of dates in Jersey. But I moved the November 22nd date because they started to tell me what the prices of the tickets were going to be. I've never been at that venue. I told them, "Please, let's do it in the spring when the season starts up in the Hamptons, so that we can do a better job. I don't want to be exposed. I've never been there. They've got nothing but names at this West Hampton Performing Arts Center. I will be at the Claridge on the 31st, in Atlantic City on the 31st of July. But I have a bunch of dates in Jersey this coming up in the 20s. I'd like you to join me. I'd like you to join me. You'll get paid, and you can come open for me and work with me at a number of Yeah, we'll do that because I just moved it yesterday. I moved the Hamptons to the spring, so we'd have more time.
I'm sure we share an agent, Sharon Klein. She'll call me probably in the spring to tell me.
No. You're
that the show's
Wait, where are you performing in Jersey?
I'll be at Westlake Golf Club. I mean, these aren't prestigious gigs, but I'll be in Westlake. I'll be in Somerset. I'll be in Jackson.
Where is Somerset?
I don't know. At the gigantic gated community, 700 seats, 600 seats. It's on my website on iamsarge.com. And you can see where
I bet you're performing at where my mother lives. I'll die if that's true.
Well, I listen, I hope I am. I mean, I'll be in Marlborough. I've got a bunch of dates.
Well, next show we'll make sure we'll blast that.
We'll make sure we do that. But the one to check out is the Claridge down at the Atlantic City. If you're anywhere on the Jersey Shore, if you're in Ventnor, if you're in Margate, if you're in Brigantine, if you're in any of those places, come over to Claridge on the 31st. I've got a big show there, and if Jimmy wants to come, I don't know what you're doing on the 31st, but if you want to come down, you're also welcome to come work. I'm very generous. I always have my Sarge and in charge checkbook with me, so I never expect my friends to throw down for free. But in any event, every summer I do this tour with my son, and the only thing we're concerned.
How old is your son now?
My boy's 16, and he's fantastic. Yeah, beautiful kid. I'm sure. And Jimmy Palumbo with his beautiful family sitting courtside. But yeah,
well, listen, yes, we will be. I'll discuss all your dates as we go on your website, and we'll next week on the show. I'll bust balls and put them up there.
No, but I'll be in town from the 19th onward. We'll talk later. But
we'll talk for that.
Let's plan on being together a couple of times in the near term from some of these other dates, and then the November 22nd one. That moved because although you know what, you can do the Barrymore with me on November 14th in Fort Lee at that cute little theater over there. So you can do that with me.
I almost did a gig there, but it got changed, and then I couldn't do it the second time around. So yeah, I'm only 20 minutes from Fort Lee.
I'm coming from. See, that doesn't happen to me as much as it does when you're local because I'm coming from out of town, and so the plans are contracted and down in dirt, and that's it.
Well, listen, Sarge, you are a very funny man. I appreciate you coming on the Jimmy Palumbo Show. I know this is one of your biggest gigs you've ever done.
I love this, Jimmy. I love this.
Sarge, if you don't have your own podcast, you probably should. Just so we're clear.
Well, let's let a little time go by and let's talk again, and then I'll tell you some of the funny stories from my 2.5 years as a national sports radio talk show host on Fox Sports Radio out of Sherman Oaks in Los Angeles.
I remember that. I remember when you were on.
Wow.
Sarge. Yeah. It was called Sarge in the Foxhole on Fox Sports Radio.
I remember that.
I
listened to that. I like it. All right. Well, listen, we got to wrap things up. Sarge getting involved here from the Omni in downtown Atlanta. I will.
Jimmy, did you know there's one more piece of business? Did you know that Canon Camera is the official copier of the Flames and the Omni?
And did you know that? Wait a minute. Are you opening up at the Virginia Slims tournament at the Garden?
Oh yes,
God.
The opening night is Harold Solomon and Wojtek Feedback.
From the Forum. I watched Ralph Sampson. He got drafted. The draft was at the Forum, the Felt Forum. Remember that little shit thing?
The Felt Forum. That's where they had all the boxing.
Yeah,
that's where they had all the boxing at the Felt Forum.
I used to always say whenever I was at a shitty event, I'd be like, what is this? The Felt Forum? No one laughed except my cousin John. He thought it was funny.
And Wilfred Benitez with a beautiful uppercut and a sparkling right hand, and Scipion is backwards reeling.
I can't take it. All right, Sarge, we love you. We'll
Sarge,
talk to you
great
very
to meet
soon.
you, man.
Love you guys.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Let's give it up for Sarge. All right. Well, we got to wrap up quickly here. What else?
Don't bring the mood down with the Yankees.
Everything
was
Yankees
good. Sarge
stink.
is probably your best guest that you've had.
Yankees stink. We know that. But in bigger news, Dave Stone Show, out of Mahwah, New Jersey, Jimmy Palumbo back in the lineup after missing 2 games due to being away at recitals in Seagirt, New Jersey. Another 2-for-3 night, keeping his average at 667. And according to the official score, I was 2 for 3 last night. I did not read the official box score. It could be 3 for 3, depending on how you judge. I gave it an error on the guy, but some people, so we got to wait till the standings are officially
Good old
in.
FC, Fielder's Choice.
Yes, indeed. I also, just one last thing, which you'll appreciate. I went golfing down at Cambridge, Maryland, and I shot a 119 with official scoring. I'm talking about if I hit it out, I did official PGA scoring. And the next day, 2 days later, I golfed again. I was like, you know what? All I want to do is beat 119. And I had a shot at it, and guess what I finished with? A 119.
119. Nice.
Oh, my God. So my golf game stinks. I got a bunch of other shit I could have talked about, but you know what? We had fun with Sarge, so the hell with it. So that'll do it here from downtown Mahwah. I will, that's it. What else?
So listen, next programming though for everybody next week, it will be on a different day. Will not be on Tuesday. We'll figure that out. Me and Jimmy will talk.
Right. Anybody listening, please go check out Dave's show at the Tiki Bar. Well, is it Tiki Bar or is it
Martell's Tiki Bar?
Martell's Tiki Bar. Big wrestling show on the 15th, next Tuesday. I'm telling you guys, listen to me. I don't even like wrestling. I don't know anything about it. I went last year and I was like, this is very, very cool. I'm going to try to get my daughter to come down if we can. I'm telling you, bring your kids down to this thing. It's
Miles and Stella will be there. So
there's no way if you bring your kid between the age of like 8 and 12, there's no way they won't have fun. No way. Yeah. It's really cool to see live. You did a good job with it. So I hope it's got good weather. I hope you're sold out. I hope it kicks ass. I hope you make money and all that stuff. That'll do it here. Show number 224 coming to a close as Sabalenka enters the semis at Wimbledon. I will talk to you later on. I'll talk to you later.
Good night, everybody.